Hey y'all, it's me, Emma from The Rice Life. Long time no see. I know. Hold on, let me make sure my phone's on vibrate, y'all. Even though my phone is like jacked up, so when it vibrates, it makes this weird cricket sound. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, as you can tell by the title, this is going to be about something pretty serious, something that happened in June. So it has been a couple months, but it happened in June. There's Ellie. It happened June 26th. We've had a very trying summer, to say the least. If you follow me on Instagram, you already know what happened. I talked about it pretty, I guess pretty in depth there when everything happened. So if you're not following me on Instagram, then go follow me there, and you can look at the old post that I put up on June. Whenever I put it up, I know it happened June 26th. I think I posted the next day, or I can't remember if I posted that day. I'm not sure, but anyways, as you can tell by the title, I had an ectopic pregnancy in June, and I guess I'm just gonna go from the beginning till present day. It has been a very trying, I guess 6-7 weeks. I'm not sure how long it's been, y'all. It's been a while, but yeah, it's been a very trying time. It's been a lot of ups and downs and all that, even after everything was resolved. So I thought. So I'm gonna start at the beginning. So John and I, we had our 10-year wedding anniversary, as you guys know. We had a lot of fun in Cancun. Like I said, y'all, just had a lot of fun in Cancun, and there were a couple times where we weren't trying, but weren't preventing, if you know the whole saying. It was kind of like we were just having fun. We were having fun, and I honestly wasn't tracking ovulation and all that. My periods are still very sporadic. Since nursing Ellie, they're not consistent whatsoever. So and my hormones are all up and down and all that. So I had I think one period before going to Cancun, because if you're not sure, if you're not sure, but when I breastfeed, I usually don't get a period, and so that's definitely a plus for me while breastfeeding. But when I don't get a period when breastfeeding, they're also very sporadic, or when they do come back, they're not really 28-day cycles. They're very all over the place until my body kind of gets regulated again. So I'm pretty sure I only had one period before going to Cancun. So I was not tracking ovulation and all that, guys. When we went there, we were just, for lack of a better phrase, just having fun. And yeah, but I remember feeling like my period was going to start in June. This is June 7th or 8th or something like that. I remember feeling like my period was going to start, but then I also remember feeling pregnant. And I took a pregnancy test, and I thought I saw a super faint line. It was one of the squinter, looking back, it was definitely one of the squinter lines where you're I'm not sure if I'm pregnant, I don't know. But then the very next day, my period started. So or what I thought was my period started. It lasted about 7 or 8 days, and it was just a really long, really heavy period with tons of clots and all that. And so I remember texting pictures to John, texting pictures to my sister. Yeah, I'm that kind of person. I was texting pictures, and I was this is just so odd. This is the heaviest period I've ever had. What is going on? And my sister was maybe your body's still regulating, from nursing and all that. You've only ever had one period since having Ellie, so maybe your body's not used to it, that kind of thing. John's kind of I don't know what's going on. So like I said, guys, the day before, so I think June 7th or 8th or something like that, I took a pregnancy test. There was a super faint line, and then I just kind of wrote it off as a chemical pregnancy, honestly, because I figured I'm bleeding heavily, there's no way I'm pregnant, And so, like I said, I bled for 7 or 8 days, and I just felt fine after that. I felt oh, that's my period, it is what it is. And so yeah, so fast forward to June 25th, so that's a few weeks later. Fast forward to June 25th, and I was sitting on the toilet that morning. I had to go to work that day. I had a photo shoot we had planned for work, and I remember just feeling really lethargic that morning. I just felt really tired, and when I sat down on the toilet, I had this shooting pain in my rectum. So I knew something was wrong. It literally felt like someone was taking a knife and just sticking it up there. I mean, guys, it's just what it is. It was an absolutely horrendous, horrible feeling. And I remember telling John, oh God, what's going on? I told my sister. She was saying maybe it's hemorrhoids. Y'all, I was thinking everything but internal bleeding, right? And so but actually, let me backtrack, because that was a Tuesday when I had the horrific pain. That Monday when I wiped, I had what I thought was like a yeast infection. It was just like, looking back on it and what they told me it was just like tissue. I've only ever had like a couple yeast infections in my life. So when I wiped, it was white, and I know that like white is like synonymous with like a yeast infection, but I should have known because there was like no itching or anything. But I remember wiping and seeing like this white tissue or white whatever. I don't know what I could call it, but I wiped and I was like, oh, that's weird. And so Karsyn had a pageant the following weekend, and so I thought, oh, I'll take a monostat one day, because I was like, if it is a yeast infection, I just want to knock it out. And so I was like, I'll take a monostat one day, that way if that's what it is, then it'll just be done. I'd never taken a monostat one day ever in my life. And so that was on a Monday. So the Tuesday, when I had the really bad rectal pain, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like that monostat one day, because I read, like after I bought it, I read all these like horror stories about how it burns and how it hurts and all this kind of stuff like the following day. So like I said, I took the monostat one day on a Monday, and on Tuesday on Tuesday the 25th, I started having the really horrible like shooting rectal pain. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that monostat one day, like what is in this thing? So I didn't know what was going on. So like I said, it was the 25th. I just took 2 Bayer back and body once I started feeling the pain. I had the shooting rectal pain. I took some Bayer back and body, and I went on to work. And I remember like walking across campus, and it was like hurting so bad, y'all. It would hurt to sit down, it would hurt to stand, but I still had to like, you know, put on a smile. Like I didn't want to look like I was in pain. Looking back, I'm like, I don't know how in the world I did that, y'all. I just don't know. It was like, that was nothing but God. But so I feel like I got home around like 9 o'clock that night. It was a very long day. I got home around 9 o'clock, and I was just in excruciating pain, y'all. And so I just decided I'm just gonna lay down. Like, you know, the kids I picked up some takeout on the way home. I was like, guys, this is dinner, I'm going to bed, right? So then Ellie wanted the nurse to go to sleep, because she always does. And so I just remember like laying in the bed, and I just remember lying in the bed, and then her just like stepping onto my stomach, like trying to nurse. And guys, when she did that, it was like, when I tell you that pain was worse than childbirth, like I remember telling John, I'd rather pop out a baby like a Pez dispenser than to ever feel this pain again, guys. I can't explain how horrible that pain was. It was absolutely horrible. And I remember her stepping on my stomach, and I just screamed and like blacked out. And when John came in, he was like, we're going to the ER, like this is enough, we're going. So I went to the ER, I think around 9 something, like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we stayed in the ER for about 4.5 hours, guys. I remember being in the wheelchair. I don't remember much, because like the pain was so intense that I was just like passing out, guys. Like it was horrible. I just remember like going to triage and them taking all my information and stuff. And the guy that was in triage, I guess a nurse, he was like, I'm no doctor, but if I had to guess what it was, I would say that the muscle between your anal sphincter and something else. He was saying all kinds of stuff, y'all, like everything he thought it could be. And so he told me to go, when I go, you know, back in the room, he was like, oh, do downward dog if you can, because that should help alleviate some of the pain. That made it worse, guys. It was horrible. So but I do remember like sitting in the waiting room for 4.5 hours. And then when the doctor came in, she was like, is there any chance you could be pregnant? And I was like, heck no. Like I just had an 8-day long period a couple weeks ago. Like there's no way I'm pregnant. You know, that's just not a thing. And so of course they did the urine test, and the urine test came back positive. Like so she came in, she's like, you're pregnant. And so the first thing John says is, I read the monostat one day box, and it said that you can't take it if you're pregnant. So I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, if I am in fact pregnant, like what did I do to the baby? You know, that was my first instinct. Like, oh my gosh, I took this monostat one day, and oh Lord, maybe that's why everything's happening. So but I remember her saying, she's like, no, monostat wouldn't have you feeling like this. Like this definitely isn't a monostat thing. So we're gonna rush you back for an ultrasound. So they rushed me back for the ultrasound, and I just remember like immediately knowing something was wrong. Like of course like the pain I was in was a great indicator that things weren't going well if I was in fact pregnant. But I just remember like just this feeling that came over me, and it was just like such a peace. Like even though I didn't have confirmation yet, it was such a peace like that came over me, and I was like, okay, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. It's gonna be okay. But I just knew like it wasn't gonna be the outcome that I would hope for. And so I remember they start the ultrasound, or the sonographer, the ultrasound tech, whatever. She started the ultrasound, and she put the little wand on my belly, and it was just like pitch black. You couldn't see anything. And y'all, I'm no sonographer, but I've had 4 kids, and so I knew something was wrong when I didn't see anything at all. And I should have been like 6.5 weeks or so. If I was in fact pregnant, I would have been 6.5 weeks. I didn't see anything at all. And so they did like the topical ultrasound. You couldn't see anything. and then she did the transvaginal, and you still couldn't see anything, and she kind of turned the screen away. And I remember looking at John, I was like, this is not good, like something's wrong. And so after we finished the ultrasound, I went back to the room, and they called me in, they came in, and they were like, it's an ectopic pregnancy, it's not located in your uterus, we don't know exactly where it is, but we have to do exploratory laparoscopic surgery to basically find it and get it out of there, basically is what they were saying. So that's how I found out that I was in fact pregnant, but it was not where it was supposed to be. I later found out that it was in, it was like in the annex between the uterus and the fallopian tube. I can't remember the exact term, but yeah, so guys, that's basically, not basically, that is what happened. They told me that I would need laparoscopic surgery, and they told me that I would most likely lose my left tube at minimum, and then my uterus at the most, depending on what they finally get in there. They said that I had pretty bad, severe, or I had severe damage, and I had a lot of blood in my stomach. That's why I was in such severe pain. One big indicator of ectopic pregnancy and of internal bleeding is that severe rectal pain, and so that's why I was feeling what I was feeling. So they went in, they did the laparoscopic surgery. I think the surgery took 3.5 or 4 hours, I can't remember. It took a while. I want to say about 3 hours and some change. And they did what they had to do in there, guys. So they removed everything except my uterus, my fallopian tubes, or my ovaries. It's crazy that I still have everything intact. That is like nothing but God, y'all. I went in thinking that I would have to get at least my fallopian tube removed, and didn't have to remove anything. So they removed everything they could. I'm going to say everything they could because I'm going to tell you what happened later on. But I have a scar just like on the sides of my belly and through my belly button. So that was on June 26th. The healing was intense. When I would see like laparoscopic surgeries, I wouldn't think they were that intense because like the scars aren't really big. It's not like a C-section scar. But guys, I was prescribed Oxy, and I didn't take it because I'm still nursing Ellie. So I just remember coming home that afternoon and like Ellie trying to nurse, and I was in such excruciating pain, but I didn't want to take the Oxy because I still want to nurse her. So I was just taking, I think like Tylenol or something. John had to help me to the bathroom. He had to help me roll over. It was really intense. And I remember the doctor saying like, you know, they're laparoscopic incisions, but don't think that we weren't in there, you know, moving around and cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So it's crazy that I mean, it didn't, when I saw the marks or like the scars later on, it was kind of insane to believe that like so much had happened like internally. I'm still healing, and this is what, like 6 weeks post. I'm still sore. That surgery was just really intense. It's a lot more intense than I thought it would be. Like I said, all I took was a Tylenol because I'm still nursing Ellie. So for the first couple weeks, I would just nurse her with like a pillow in between us, because one time she did like horse kick me, and that was absolutely dreadful. So yeah, so like I said, I had the surgery June 26th, and then let me see what day it was. Let me see, y'all. So I had the surgery June 26th, and I was still taking pregnancy tests after that just to like make sure that they were getting more faint, and they were for a while. They were getting more faint, and then I noticed on, I think July, was it July 13th? Because I have a ton of pictures in here, y'all, but I feel like July 13th, or let me see, no, no, it's not July 13th. That's when I took a pregnancy test. I noticed the faint line was July 13th. It was July 19th. Kaine was at soccer practice, and I just felt really nauseous. So this is like almost a month later, guys. This is like 3 weeks after the surgery. I felt really nauseous at Kaine's soccer practice, and I was like, oh my god, I'm pregnant. That was my first instinct. I was like, I'm still pregnant. Like, they didn't get everything, I'm still pregnant. And so I went home and took a pregnancy test, and it was immediately positive. I took the digital, and it was like, it came up in like 5 seconds, guys. Maybe not 5 seconds, but it came up in way less than a minute, and it was like a blaring pregnant. So then I took a first response, and it was like 2 dark lines right away. And of course I'm freaking out because of course if they got everything, my number should be lowering, my HCG should be lowering, which means that the test line should be looking more faint. So I ended up calling the OB, and they brought me in for blood work, and my numbers were still at like a 30 something. I think they're supposed to be down to 0. They're still at a 30 something, which to me didn't sound super high, but they were still making me register pregnant. So I ended up having a blood draw like on a Friday, and then on a Monday I had another blood draw, and they went from like 32 to like 35 or something. So they were still increasing, which let them know that they had more fetal cells left. I'm not sure when my camera cut off, but I think I was saying that I was still registering pregnant. And then I went to, I got my blood work done. I was still in the 30s. And so they ended up prescribing me Methotrexate. I got that last week, so last Tuesday. So it's been 8 days since I got Methotrexate. And what Methotrexate is, it's like a chemo drug that they give you. And I got 2 rounds. I'm not sure how much it was, but I got one on each hip. And what it does is it inhibits the absorption of folic acid. So that way it like kills any placental cells or any fetal cells or anything like that. So with the laparoscopic surgery, they can kind of like get what they can, you know, like they can only get what they can see. And so clearly there were some cells left behind that were still multiplying and that were still making my, there's Ellie, and those cells were still making my body think that it was pregnant. So I was still super nauseous, guys. I was still gaining weight. I've gained about 11 pounds throughout this whole ordeal. I was still gaining weight. I was still craving. I was still, up until last week, or until a few days ago actually, I was still craving, gaining weight, having food aversions, super nauseous. And it's because my body still thought that it was pregnant, because I still had the cells left in my body that the laparoscopic surgery did not remove. And so like I said, I had the Methotrexate. Y'all got kids, okay? I had the Methotrexate last week. And oh yeah, throughout this whole ordeal, guys, I did not bleed. Like from the only time I bled was the beginning of June when I thought I had was my period. And then I didn't bleed again up until last Thursday. So throughout the entire ordeal, I never bled again. So I kind of thought that was weird too. And that's why I really thought my body was holding on to the pregnancy, because my body wasn't triggered to like start bleeding at all until I took the Methotrexate. And when I got the Methotrexate injections on Tuesday, I started bleeding on Thursday. And that was a very, like, I'm still slightly bleeding today. It's not as bad as it's been the past few days, but from Thursday up until yesterday, it was pretty heavy, pretty intense. And so but that's also an indication that the Methotrexate is working, because it's like removing all the fetal cells and all that. Like your body is expelling everything that's not supposed to be there anymore. So like I said, I took the Methotrexate last week, and then I went in for my blood work on Monday, and they want to see your counts go down by at least 15%, because if not, you have to get another round of Methotrexate, which I do not want, because it's a chemo drug, so you don't want that really in your system. It's not the best thing to have in your body. I kind of just had no choice. I had to do it because my body would have been like perpetually pregnant. My body would have always thought that I was pregnant, and I'm sure that can lead to infection. Like you got things in you got things left in your body that aren't supposed to be there, and your body isn't triggering your period, and it was just been a whole bunch of mess. So we weighed the pros and cons, and I just need to take it just to kind of get my body back into gear and to get everything expelled. So I went back on Monday, this past Monday, so 2 days ago. I went back and got my blood work done, and my levels had gone down to a 14. So that was pretty good. So my next blood draw is next Monday. Hopefully it will be down to 0 or really close to 0. I'm thinking it will be, simply because I've been bleeding for the past few days. So I think my body's kind of like, okay, Emerald, like, you know, this is the end. So it's like really sad, but it's also very comforting at the same time, because and not that I'm trying to get over it in any way or like rush the healing, but it does feel good to say, okay, my body's getting back into gear and like it's doing what it's supposed to, because there's nothing more disheartening than like knowing you lost a pregnancy and then to constantly see like pregnancy tests getting darker and darker and knowing you're not pregnant. So they did an ultrasound right before they gave me the Methotrexate, because I was like, maybe what if there's another one in there? Like, what if you didn't see what you thought you saw? And so for my peace of mind, they gave me another ultrasound and confirmed that my lining was super thin. Like there's no way in the world that anything could have ever survived in there, basically. And then saying that my numbers weren't doubling at all. So it was literally just leftover placental tissue and that kind of thing. So that was very comforting, knowing that all I had to do is take the Methotrexate and just kind of, you know, get the show on the road. So with the Methotrexate, I was super nauseous up until yesterday, having food aversions. I probably lost that 10 or 11 pounds that I gained, probably not, but I just haven't been able to really eat the way I normally do, or the way I was when my body was thinking it was pregnant. I haven't been able to really eat that much. But let's see, with Methotrexate, it is a very intense drug. You cannot have sex at all for 36 days. I think that's the lifetime that it stays in your body. you can't have intercourse for 36 days. And then for 60 days after that, you're supposed to have protected sex. So basically, so essentially for like 3 months, you're not supposed to get pregnant. A lot of research says you're not supposed to get pregnant for at least 6 months. John and I are not planning a pregnancy at all, so we don't have to worry about that. But just in case this ever happens to you and you're curious, and you have if you have the option of laparoscopic surgery versus methotrexate, and usually you only get laparoscopic surgery if a tube is ruptured, like you had internal bleeding like I did. Usually they give you methotrexate to avoid having surgery. I just happen to have both because not only did I rupture and have to have repair, but after the rupture and after the repair, I still had cells left over that the surgery didn't remove. So usually if you haven't ruptured and they find ectopic pregnancy, you will get methotrexate. So just know that from all the research that I've seen, you should not get pregnant for about 5 to 6 months. And that's just to avoid birth defects and that kind of thing. So that's just for future reference for anybody, just in case. I pray you don't, but just in case you ever have to take methotrexate, that's just what they say. So right now, guys, I'm just on the mend. I'm healing well. Like I said, my incisions are still sore. I still have I have like a keloid on my stomach now from the incision through my belly button. Like lots of scar tissue. I scar easily anyway, so I knew that it would leave scars, but it's fine. It's not like a C-section scar. They're like the little, like the incisions that they basically put the tools in through. So they aren't huge incisions. They're maybe like 1.5 inches or so. So yeah, guys, so I'm not sure if my comments are back on. I doubt they are, but if they are, leave any comments or questions or anything below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But yeah, like I said, if you follow me on Instagram, you already know what happened, but I had ectopic pregnancy. It was not, like I said, the pregnancy was not planned. But of course, I would have loved that baby just as much as any other baby I have. So, yeah, it's not like it's any less of a life just because it ended at, like, you know, 7 weeks or anything like that. Like, that was still our baby. So even if it would have been a surprise baby, it was still, you know, our baby nonetheless. So just continue to keep us in your prayers, guys. Just continue to pray for healing, spiritually mainly. Spiritual healing, emotional healing, and physical healing, of course, because I'm still very, very lethargic, very tired. This happened in June, the end of June, and I pretty much laid around up until like a couple weeks ago. I felt really bad because the kids just really didn't have the summer that I wanted them to have. I had a lot of stuff planned, and of course when this happened, I was bedbound for a few weeks. So I had a few things planned, but you know, plans change, and that's fine. I don't feel like the kids feel like their summer was ruined because everything happened. So they've been very helpful. They don't know all the ins and outs, don't know everything that's happened, but all they know is mommy had surgery on her belly. That's all they know. And it's so weird too, because when I went in, or that night when I was going to the ER and we were getting the kids packed up, Kaine looked at me and he said, "Worst pregnancy ever." And it was the weirdest thing in the world. Looking back at it, like, he said, "Worst pregnancy ever." And I said, "Kaine, what are you talking about?" And he was like, "Worst pregnancy ever," because I was in so much pain, and he just knew. It was just so weird. And then a couple weeks ago, when I took the pregnancy test in the bathroom, he walked in and he didn't see the pregnancy test, but he walked in and he said, "Mommy, are you pregnant?" And I was like, "No." Like, it was just, I don't know, he's just very instinctive. So I don't know what they know or what they act like they don't know, but we have not sat them down and talked to them. I don't know if we ever will, just because it's kind of like really heavy for them. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, guys, just ask me any questions below. I'm more than happy to answer them. If you have gone through this, know that you're not alone, and I truly empathize, because you hear about ectopic pregnancy, but you don't, it's not that you never think it'll happen to you, but it's so rare that or at least for me, it's I've only known like a couple people to ever have one. I've known, you know, more miscarriages and that kind of thing, but usually ectopic is it's not an everyday occurrence. So I guess it's so rare that I never researched it enough, or never really empathize with women that go through it, because I never encountered it. But I truly empathize with every woman that has ever gone through this. It is a lot to handle. And yeah, I'm just thankful for my support system. I'm thankful for all the meals that we received. I'm thankful for all the prayers that we received. Like, we just really had an outpouring of love and support from a lot of people, so that's been nice. So yeah, guys, like I said, that's the story. That's pretty cut and dry. Like I said, I should not need any more methotrexate. We're hoping that next week my levels are down to really close to 0, if not at 0, and then that will just kind of be the end of it. That will be the physical end of it. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. It's just having the physical aspects just like cleared out and, you know, just done with. because like I said, the emotional healing is still happening. But just physically, I don't want to keep going back and forth. Like, I can literally drive to that OB with my eyes closed, y'all. I go like 2 or 3 times a week. It is horrible. So I was like, I'll be so happy when I don't have to go there anymore. But the people there are super nice, and they, you know, since I walk in, they know exactly who I am. They know exactly what I need, that kind of thing. So they've been really helpful. So anyway, this is Emma from The Rice Life, and if you cannot leave any comments below, then go to my Instagram, and you will see like a screenshot of this video. You'll see like the thumbnail or the title of this video on my Instagram, and you'll be able to comment underneath that post on Instagram. So, all right, bye y'all.